Now, with a career that spans over 50 years, Marah Louw has been described as South Africa's musical and entertainment industry royalty. Now, from traveling and gracing countless global theatre productions to being a leading actress in South African musicals such as Baby Come Duze and Nkosi, The Healing Song, to her iconic role on SABC TV series Muvhango, she has done it all. And in 2017, Marah also published her tell-all book, It's Me, Marah. And as we continue to celebrate South Africa's 30 years of democracy this morning, we are joined virtually by Marah Louw, South African legendary singer, actress, and published author. Miss Marah, good morning and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning, everyone at SABC and everybody around the country and the world.
It is such a pleasure to have you with us this morning. One of the most legendary entertainers we have in this country. And, you know, we're looking at 30 years of democracy, and we couldn't have this conversation without Marah Louw. But can we just start off by telling us the secret as to how you remain looking this fabulous? I mean, it's wrong. It's wrong for the rest of us.
Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. I just don't, you know, besides all the little aches and pains of the bones, the arthritis, besides that, I don't think, I don't know why. I always think I need to try my best without having to go and do any physical or surgical stuff. Just try and look after myself, you know? Yeah, but I have no secret whatsoever.
And you just look absolutely amazing. But let's go back as we celebrate you, but also take a look at 30 years of democracy in South Africa. And perhaps going back to the beginning of your career, is this something that you had planned, you always wanted to do, you know, be part of the arts, or is it something that came by chance?
I started singing when I was a little girl, you know, around about 10, 12 years old in a church choir. And at the same time when I went to high school. And I have to confess, one of the reasons I kind of decided I can't do this when I was at school at Orlando West High, when Africa, the language of Afrikaans, when it was forced upon, you know, some of the schools. I don't hate Afrikaans, but I just couldn't handle the language. And I thought, where would this language take me if I ever decide to travel around the world? Nowhere else. I thought, nah. Anyway, I got into show business very young age. And my big break was being part of a musical Meropa, which went to Japan and traveled around the Far East, Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines. In the Philippines, we ate dog food. We didn't know it was dog meat, but until they told us what was served on the table. So be careful of your puppies, guys. You know, if you've got some people living next door, that you suddenly miss your puppy. But then I got lucky with the musical Meropa, which lasted quite a few years. When we came back from the Far East, we performed around South Africa, Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, in all the major theaters. And then the musical went to London. And when we were in London, we were a much bigger cast. And during that time, we were invited. So, you know, when I see now and actually admire the younger artists who have had the opportunity to sing for Queen Elizabeth. But I sang for Queen Elizabeth in 1975 at the Palladium Theatre. It was a big show. It was called the Royal Command Performance, when the Queen decides to choose who must come and perform for her. And it's a fundraising thing for the arts. And I was one of those lucky ones who, with just 10 of the cast members, not the whole cast of Meropa. And that was magical. I mean, after the show, we had to meet the Queen, and I stood there. I was supposed to curtsy when the King stops in front of me. And instead of curtsying, I was looking at her as if to say, who do you think you are? Not that I was thinking, but I was just caught. And And it was quite an amazing event. And we performed at some major theaters with the musical. Then I came back. And when I came back, I thought, now, okay, I was part of a musical. Now I need to launch me, Marah, myself, and I need to launch my career as a singer. And my very first big break when I came back from London was performing on a tour with the main ingredients and Dobie Gray. I mean, that for me was the beginning of doors opening as a solo artist.
And then, of course, those were massive artists back in the day. I mean, I don't think there was a home that did not play Dobie Gray. You know, we all grew up on it, force-fed on it. But, you know, that is just what it was. And, you know, as you say, your career just, you know, seemed to flourish from one pivotal moment to the next. And then, you know, there was Wally Serote then, you know, because the reality of the time when you were coming into your own was that, as you say, it was a very political time. And in as much as people were going out and performing as artists, there was always, you know, that a political element attached to it, fighting for liberation in South Africa. And then, of course, the Mandela concert in London's Wembley Stadium, 1988. And I was reading how it was Wally Serote who actually invited you to that. Talk to us about that moment, how it came about, and what happened after that.
It was just absolutely amazing. When I got a call, I was in the middle of a production at the Market Theatre. And the receptionist at the Market Theatre came to me and says, Sis Marah, please, you need to come to the phone at the Market Theatre during our break, you know, the interval between shows. And he says, as he said, someone from London is going to give you a call. And I went to receive the call. And when I got the call, it was Wally Serote, you know, he's my big brother. And he says, Marah, you're coming to London next week. And I said, no, wait a minute. This was the concert after the one that was in 1987. This was the concert at Wembley Stadium, Sakina, whereby Madiba, Tata Mandela, was going to be in attendance. He had just come out of prison. He came out, I think, on the 11th, and on that same month, 2 weeks later, I was on a flight to London to perform for him at Wembley Stadium. That, for me, is unforgettable. There was 87,000 people at Wembley Stadium. I was sharing the stage with Patti LaBelle and all high-quality artists from around the world. But from South Africa, here was I, Marah Louw, being in a band which was put together by Dade Kaifas Semenya and a big band of South African musicians who were already, you know, who were still in London because of the struggle, and they were in exile. But some of them were incorporated into the cast. And Kaya Mahlangu and myself, Minyazo Matole, are the ones Kaifas asked that we should join this big band. That was the most magical. And then this photo that I see here, this was now in Glasgow, when Madiba was receiving, and I had to tour with Madiba. I mean, I think I would be one of the most luckiest artists who had the opportunity every time Madiba went to a certain country. They would ask, Marah, are you available? Madiba is asking for you. And I says, what? Me? Yes. Where are we going this time? We're going to Scotland. I had a great time with that. It was like traveling with your best friend, your dada, you know, oh my gosh. And that photo there, we're at George Square, where it was pouring down with rain, Sakina, pouring with rain. People were standing there and no one had an umbrella. That's how they respect the artist. Because if you're standing with an umbrella, people behind you can't see what's happening on stage. We were the only one protected on stage, myself, Tata Madiba, Tata Father Trevor Huddleston, and all the dignitaries, Brian Filling, who was then the chairman of the Scottish anti-apartheid movement. So it was magical. And a number of other performances I did for Tata. When he went to France, I was there. I was becoming part of the luggage.
Oh, man. And people would give anything to have been in your shoes and doing all of that, Ms. Marah. But of course, you performed on all these global stages. You actors in numerous musicals, stage plays, as you were telling us, you know, feature films. And then, of course, the younger viewers got to see you on SABC television soap opera Muvhango, and you know that journey, because again that became and still is so iconic. Here's another one, Marah Louw,
Yeah.
and you know, another iconic moment.
Yeah, you know what? Meropa was one of the most beautiful products. It was my first time, by the way, when Duma Ndlovu, the producer of Muvhango, when he invited me to be part of the show, and I told him, I said, I'm not a TV actor, I'm a singer. And the only kind of acting that I do is maybe in a drama series on stage, a musical, a theater production. But I've never been in front of a camera. But I had an opportunity after Duma, just before Duma asked me, of playing one of the leads in the movie Taxi to Soweto.
I remember
When I'm
Taxi to
wearing a
Soweto.
miniskirt. Taxi to Soweto with my two big brothers, my best friends, Ramulao Makhene and gosh, there's so many of them. But that was the first time having to act in front of a camera. And I didn't know the dynamics, you know, that when you're doing a movie, you speak to the camera. But when you're doing television soapies, you don't speak to the camera. You do your whole acting away from the camera. The camera will follow you. So I had to learn all those dynamics without having to go to school. That was the best school to learn acting between television and movie. So, and then after, it was Meropa, Muvhango. Muvhango was, oh gosh. Yeah, I was there for 10 years. I enjoyed myself there. Yeah, it was okay. Let me not go any further.
No, you know, and I'm so loving you telling your story in your own voice. You got the opportunity to do that through your book as well. Just looking at your illustrious career, what would you say is the standout moment for you?
Oh my gosh, I've been trying to figure that out. You know, there have been so many highlights. There have been so many amazing things that have happened that I find myself in a difficult space in terms of choosing which one was the best, you know. And I know sometimes I keep going back to the big guy, Madiba, but there's been other amazing opportunities for me, Sakina, whereby, you know, as I grow older, and the only challenge that I have now is that at my age, I mean, I'm 72 years. I never say I'm 72 years old. I always say I'm 72 years still growing. I'm still growing.
Yeah.
I'm not old. I mean, a blanket could be an old blanket. I'm not a...
I can't disagree with
anyway,
that.
The only challenge is that it's hard for me to say. You know, my first book, my autobiography, which I was advised actually by Dr. Mutobi Mutlate, when I wanted to write my story. And he said, Marah, don't get anyone to write your book. You're a writer. I mean, I used to have columns in certain magazines. I had a column in Ebony Africa years ago. There was Ebony magazine, and Michael Cheers, who came to South Africa with Ebony to launch Ebony, and they had Ebony Africa. They gave me a whole middle spread to write, and I used to write. That's where I got the love for writing. It is just something else compared to being on stage in front of cameras. So I started doing that, and then I got another opportunity to be in a magazine to write articles about certain artists, to feature artists in the Afropolitan magazine. That's when Mutobi said, Marah, don't let anyone write your story. You know, you don't want anyone putting their own words into your life. Write your own story. You're a writer. And I thought, okay, that was easy, but not that easy. It was getting hard for me to remember, because it's an autobiography where you are telling your story. And I had to have the guts to mention people by names, whether they touched me in the big way, in a beautiful way, in a wrong way, in a funny way, whichever way. And I thought, well, if you've got a different story to tell, write your own book. But fortunately, I didn't come across any. Everybody was like, wow, we knew this, but we never thought you'd put it down in a book. So I'm now working on my second edition, because the first edition, the manuscript was so large. My publisher, Tabiso Mashapi of Blackbird Books, Jacana Publishers, they left out most of the stuff. Now they are pushing me to get my second edition finished. So the second edition is gonna,
I tell you what, I tell you, when you put it that way, there's no way you can't read it. Especially, I've read your first book, and we've had opportunity to speak, you know, a little more discursively when we had time. But thank you so much for engaging us and for blessing us this morning here on Morning Live, Miss Marah Louw, a South African singer, actress, published author, and as she said, watch out for the second volume of her autobiography. Thank you so much for reminiscing with us here on Morning Live over 30 years of our country's democracy, and of course your own illustrious career that spans over 50 years. Can't believe I keep saying that, but thank you so much, Miss Marah Louw there.